stabilize, see, seek. Have them go through their own process to determine their options about the situation. Not only what they've experienced and exercised in the past, but hopefully some additional skills and resources that are available to them. What this could look like, for example, is someone who is in the life but is considering getting out and entering back into a GED program. And they take a practice test and they fail. And they come to you absolutely terrorized, absolutely hopeless that nothing good will ever happen and something imminently harmful and disastrous is right on the cusp. Stabilize, that no one is providing an immediate threat to their well-being. To see that failing that test and the feelings associated with it, although real, demonstrates that she has the ability to respond and to get through traumatic events because that impulse is based on the past. And then also see what she is going to do. Now she may say, I feel safe with my boyfriend. Or she may say, I'm going to try it again. But this is the process where she's going to make her decision. And if she says, I am going back to my exploiter, as this wonderful counselor at Sage told me, at that point, you talk through how she is going to do that and keep herself safe. To say, okay, you've been there before and we've already discussed some things that you didn't like about it. If you go back, how are those things going to turn out different? And at that point, they'll have to select what they're going to do. What seems like to them the best as well as the safest solution. At that point, they step. And when they step, they are learning and they are exercising self-care and self-determination. Now, in a spiritual context, it's been running around in my head as we all, I'm sure, experience moments of high degrees of distress and can't really explain why. So for me, when I think about stabilizing, I remind myself that there's nothing that can separate me from the love of God. That I see that if God is for me, who can be against me? That I seek Jesus, the author and the perfecter of my faith. I select the fruit of the Spirit that most applies: peace, love, joy, goodness, kindness, patience, self-control. And then step, walking humbly with my God, loving mercy on the journey. The last process, and I don't even know what the time is and how long you want to walk through this, but I did want to introduce the GEMS model in terms of stages of change and how that applies to working with survivors of trafficking or victims of trafficking, as well as the counselor's objectives in this process. We know, of course, that whether you're interacting with a minor or a major, the major was most likely initially traumatized in this respect as a minor. And this model, which is was interesting to me, was actually developed for addiction therapy, stopping smoking, for example, and to identify where this person who you are engaging, where she or he is in the process, the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, or maintenance stage. So, for example, when I was addicted to alcohol 7-8 years ago, my friends and family members made lots of suggestions that I stop drinking and what it was doing to my health and what it was doing with my relationships, what it was doing with my finances, what it was doing with my career track. But as far as I was concerned, not only was I not harming anyone with it, but I was doing what I felt was what I wanted to do, and they didn't need to get in my business, and if it were really, really important, I could quit anytime I wanted. The contemplation stage came when I tried to quit for a week and I couldn't, and realized that I had to get drunk every night. And if you go to the preparation phase, what would I do if I decided to get help? And then weigh those different things and take action along the way. And then the maintenance, realizing that a relapse can occur at any point in time at any stage. So, for example, while I'm preparing about the next AA meeting, or while I'm preparing to go to a counselor or an addiction expert, I might drop back to the contemplation. Maybe I'll do that in 6 months because, it's a Super Bowl weekend, and you can't watch a Super Bowl without a beer and a shot. So it's a similar process. So, for example, for a victim of trafficking who is in the pre-contemplation stage, this essentially is what it looks like. She denies being exploited. She may disclose that she's in the life, but that it's not a problem. She's going to be defensive if you challenge it. She's not going to want your help. She's not ready to talk about it, and she will defend her exploiter. These are some of the statements that you might hear from her. I love my daddy. He takes care of me. I make money. I'm happy making money. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. At this point, according to the GEMS experts, this is what the counselor goals would be as they engage this victim: to validate their experience, to acknowledge that they may not be ready to make a change, and just to suggest that they consider the circumstances they are in and how satisfied they are with all of them. Just to explore and to see, but also explaining and personalizing risk basically says, well, do you know any other girls that have kind of been doing this and ended up getting harmed? And invariably they know someone who was beaten or was brought to Vegas that was supposed to be for a weekend and never came back. And then to personalize it so they can connect those dots. If it happened to her, what's keeping it from happening to me? And you can also help them, obviously, with very real and very tangible things that they are ready to accept, whether it's documentation, whether it's appointments for healthcare, whether it's a GED program, or anything else. And to walk through, I can understand why you feel this way. Is there anything about this relationship that you don't like? And to continue to affirm and reaffirm that you're proud that they're even at this point, that they're willing to engage in some type of counseling relationship. At the contemplation stage, they're actually now to the point that they can acknowledge that there's certainly some pain and downsides to this life, that it may not be something they want forever. They may not be ready to leave, but they're starting to question their circumstances. But they're ambivalent. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But the most encouraging thing is that they're open to self-reflection and weighing the consequences and literally talking about their feelings, not just putting up this mask of defensiveness. These are some of the statements that you would hear during this stage of contemplation. The counselor's goals is to listen and to just let them figure it out, let them talk it out, let them explore it, let them open up, let them confide, let them build trust in the relationship about what they're willing to share and what they're willing to talk about. Encouraging them to make their little pros and cons list. When they talk about possibly a change, to reflect that back to them in their own statements and in their own sentiments. Validate their ability to actually do it. I don't know if I can do it. Oh, I believe you can. Let's talk about what you've already been through. Once again, maybe pointing out that there is help out there. They may not even realize that. And then identify those supports. These are kind of lists and the conversations that would go through. Once again, validating, proud of you, you should be proud of yourself. At the preparation, now they've made a commitment to leave. They may not leave entirely. They might test the waters. Maybe I'll check out a shelter. Maybe I'll check out a program. Maybe I'll research some of those options. A great sign is that they don't immediately answer the phone if the exploiter calls or texts. Some of the statements they may make: I want to leave. I'm not sure if I'm ready. I'm not sure where I'd go. I'm not sure if I have the money. I'm not sure if I would be safe. At this point, the counselor is helping them build a safety plan, starting to put together a case management program, encouraging small steps, And also affirming that they have underlying skills that you can identify in their past where they actually can be independent. Pointing towards the future, verifying that they have what it takes to accomplish it. When they act, once again, realize that it might not necessarily be essentially a cold turkey, that there may still be some lingering interaction or involvement with the life, but is making steps forward. Might even move from the area of exploitation to resist the opportunity for the exploiter to reach out or the temptation to return. But acknowledging that it's going to be hard, and even these statements, it's so weird being in this world again, or I feel different than everyone else in my class or on the job. And at this point, once again, now you're helping them become more self-sufficient, to be able to exercise more self-care skills in terms of when they are triggered or re-traumatized or facing obstacles, experiencing these terror feelings and hopelessness, and process these feelings. And there is a loss. I was talking to a remarkable survivor in Orange County, and we asked her, now that she was out, what would be convincing or effective for her peers that were still in the life? What would you say to them? And she said, well, you'd have to offer us something that's better than what we already have. And when she said that, I was like, well, there is nothing good about what you already have. But that's my perspective. From their perspective, they can give you a long list of things that are good in the life that they are living. So even factoring that in helps us in talking them through so that our definitions of success, our expectations for them are not put onto them. Otherwise, then they're going to just interpret that as you being disappointed in them, or you not thinking they can accomplish what you think they should do, or you judging them, or they're hurting you by letting you down. So for the professionals, my hat's off, obviously, because they're walking a very fine tightrope. Then we said, well, at what point would some of your peers, would some of your friends be most likely to respond to an opportunity for some things that sound better than what they already have? And her short answer was, usually the last beating. As a counselor, acknowledge that this is going to take time, acknowledge that this is a process, acknowledge that it's normal to love and hate your ex at the same time. Even if our definition of an ex is obviously different than their definition of an ex. And then the maintenance stage, this is what it looks like for her. She's developing a network. She's beginning to address the trauma. She's got a stable environment. She's avoiding temptations. She's resisting triggers. All the things that it's going to take for her to exercise self-care and self-determination. And you can see in those statements that, fortunately, leaving more and more of the past to the past, acknowledging them, grieving over them, but now placing them more and more in a distance. Or as one counselor said, when you're talking to them, are they looking more in the rearview mirror or out the windshield? It's normal to glance back and forth while you're driving into the rearview mirror, but how much time is being spent looking forward or looking backwards? And then in the maintenance is just, once again, consistency, but also continuing to not only encourage, but provide more tools, more resources, more skills as they're willing to accept them and as they are able to apply them and master them. Once again, addressing their feelings, stabilizing, seeking, selecting, and stepping out in this whole process. And to be realistic about the relapse changes, not much different than what we've all heard about domestic violence survivors going back 7, 8, 9 times. And to address that. in its terms of the counselors, deconstruct these feelings of failure. Because as we've gone through this whole process, we can point out that they're it's to be expected, it's to be normal, that occurs to practically every survivor in their circumstances. And then to rebuild the plan. So I'm going to, this concludes what I had. I've got one other video I thought would be helpful, and actually it's a training video in terms of psychology of trauma that's given to those who actually go around the world and collect interviews and evidence of sexual assault victims. So this could be, war zones where rape has been prevalent, and addressing that. So I thought it would be pretty helpful, and that will be it.
Sexual violence is a very traumatic experience, and some of the effects are the psychological torture that the survivors have to go through.
Some common effects of sexual violence can include depression, anxiety. Some people may have trouble sleeping, or they may gain weight or lose weight, and others may experience severe anxiety and panic, which can manifest itself into post-traumatic stress disorder.
Many people have immediate reactions to trauma, some which last a long time, and some which go away. So most people, after they've been violated and assaulted, are going to be fearful. They're going to be anxious. They're going to be sad. They're going to have memories come back to them, and they're going to want to avoid those memories. They're going to feel overwhelmed.
The fact that they're talking to you about it, they have to go through a whole episode over again. So in a way, it brings the picture back, the memory, it triggers the memory that had stored what they actually went through.
Triggers are those things that are basically cueing the person to the event. So for example, a rape survivor who was assaulted by someone who smelled like whiskey may go by whiskey, and whiskey can evoke that memory. And it's basically, what I often talk about is just straight learning. When you have a traumatic experience and you're in a situation that's dangerous, your mind fixates on all the experiences around it as danger signs, and so danger bells go off even when it's no longer. It's one-time learning, and your body is basically responding, saying, help me, don't hurt me, but there's no longer that danger there, but there once was. So there are all sorts of things that might be triggers, and that can vary by circumstance. It can vary